Yeah, I wanted to make a video as to why I, as a man, am very sour on the idea of marriage, legal marriage that is, and why I don't want to get married anytime soon. Now, mind you, I would love to find a wife and get married, but I don't believe in legal marriage. And by legal marriage, I mean the institution of marriage in the eyes of the state. Now, you can have marriage in the eyes of the church, that's perfectly fine with me. But the legal contract to me is a very bankrupt contract, and it's something that actually hurts lives rather than helps lives. And I don't think the institution is something that one should adhere to, right? So there's four reasons. I can go into more detail, but this is the four reasons why I think the institution of marriage makes no sense today. One is going to be no fault divorce. No fault divorce is not very good, right? Now, at the time when it was legislated and passed, it was good because women were in very abusive relationships, abusive marriages. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any way to get out of those marriages, and no fault divorce was a way for them to do that. And I applaud the legislators who gave those women an out so then they can have the ability to live lives that are very meaningful, very healthy, and they weren't going to stay in those abusive marriages. I think a society that allows for women to stay in abusive marriages is a very disgraceful society. So I'm genuinely very happy and very pleased that we did that. However, we have allowed the power balance to shift in the direction of the women. And now women today are getting a divorce for just whimsical reasons, really. Oh, it didn't work out within 2 years. We had problems in marriage. Of course, you have gonna have problems in marriages, right? You got to battle those problems out. No, and when it gets rough, I'm gonna leave, right? And so you allow for women who, in my opinion, are very prone to not honoring commitments when they feel a certain way. You allow for them to get out of that marriage without any penalties. And then what suffers and what actually deteriorates are the lives of their children and of their husband. Now they have to deal with the aftermath of that. Meanwhile, a lot of these women are going to go monkey branch and find another man and try to start the whole thing all over again. I just think that's not sensible. So we ought to modify it to where a woman can get a divorce, right? We shouldn't make it very hard for her to get a divorce, but it should be on grounds that society would deem suitable, right? When you enter a marriage, this is something that's going to benefit society. And so we have a vested interest to see this marriage actually go through. And you can't just leave without any consequences. Now, you have to have a good reason why you leave. And so, yes, society should have a say as to what that marriage does because we deal with the aftermath of that by you producing children that's going to, be prone to sexual immorality, criminality, all these things. And so, that's something that I would push, right? So one, it would be no fault divorce, get rid of that. Two is alimony. Now, I am not a family law attorney, right? I don't practice family law at all, but I know a few of my friends who do, and I ask them questions about family law, and they often tell me that alimony is something that is not very good. Now, in some states, now I don't know, can't quote me on this, but in some states, a woman could cheat on her husband and commit adultery, and she can still gain alimony. 50% of the marital assets can still go to her, even though she committed adultery. I think that is absolutely horrendous. It's outrageous that we would allow this, but we allow it. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's sensible. And I don't know why we don't do anything about it, but here we are. We're allowing it to go on. So the alimony laws need to change. Child custody. Women have a little bit more of an advantage to have rights over the children, over the husband, over the man. Now, mind you, there are men who are derelict in their duty in being fathers and good husbands, and those men should be shamed for doing that. But I know an awful lot of men who try to be very good husbands, very good fathers. The marriage just didn't work out. The woman left. Or perhaps he did something wrong too. It could be both ways. It always is, a mixture of the two. But needless to say, the woman filed divorce, and the courts give the women a little bit more leeway than the man. I've helped a few friends in their cases where they were dealing with a woman whom they were married to or whom they had a relationship with. and the courts were giving her a little bit more leeway as to her getting more custody rights over the child. Even though she was very manipulative in her answers, she was not complying with the court's request, and he was. The courts were still favoring her a little bit more, right? And I didn't think that was fair. And so the court system's a little bit biased against men. And then four is just overall, the culture is not good for men in terms of it doesn't respect men. Men are treated like we're second class citizens almost, and women are put on a pedestal, and women can do no wrong. Whereas, if we're really being honest, society has always looked down on women for the traits that they typically do have. There are many women who lie. They're very good liars. They're master manipulators. I mean, men lie, but women lie about the biggest things. They can lie about terrible things and pull it off and have no remorse and have no qualms about it, and they're only concerned about themselves. This isn't all women, but this is a good amount of women. It was so bad that in the 19th century, women cannot stand as witnesses to a case. I mean, they couldn't do it because the court didn't deem them to be suitable witnesses because they had the propensity to lie, right? So I don't think that has really changed. So we need to have some common sense here. We need to understand our limitations. Men have limitations, but women do too. We need to go back to the roles we had before with tremendous modifications, that is. And then we can have a better, more conducive society for our well being, for our happiness, have social harmony, if you will. But until then, I see no reason why any man should get married with a legal marriage. You can get married with the church. You can get married when it comes to any sort of institution you belong to, but to have a legal marriage where you sign a marriage certificate where you're going to put your assets on the line for this woman, and you know this woman can easily be manipulated to think God knows what, and she can ruin your life. I know plenty of men who are still working at 75 years old because they're paying alimony to their ex-wife, and trust me, she is pining for that 10-year mark to reach so that she can have lifetime alimony, right? That doesn't make sense to me. So we as a society, we have a lot of work to do. We need to change a few things. And once we do, then we can discuss it. Until then, no.